and I think a trolley with library books would be a most perfect thing.
So yeah, thanks for your time. Tour starting. Can you tell us a bit about the theme of the tour this time?
The theme of the tour is just it's going back to old-fashioned stand-up, mucking about, causing mayhem, mucking about and creating an interesting evening that's unique to that moment, and talking about whatever is happening in my life or the news.
Which kind of leads into my next question. You've talked about politics a lot in your shows over the years. Um, Given what's the political turmoil we're going through at the moment, do you adapt your shows based on what's going on?
Yeah, of course you do. I'm
Yeah,
hardly going to be talking about the Whigs, am I? Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? The Whig
yeah,
government is, you whatever's going on, you talk about.
yeah,
So Labour are firmly in the sights, um, and I think rightly so. So, whether it is winter fuel allowance, whether it's two-child poverty cap, payment cap, whether it is, trade union rights, not nationalising the railways, whatever,
yeah,
it's all up for grabs.
yeah. Which kind of leads into my next question. As a comedian, though, hearing Keir Starmer come out with comments like "release the sausages," it must give you a wealth of material to work on.
Do you know, I think that's probably the least inspiring bit I indeed release the sausages is a magnificent slip of the tongue, but actually I'm more interested in the fact that they want to get money out of pensioners.
Well,
That's
absolutely,
the
yeah,
more important thing.
yeah,
Um, and whoever's in power, they give you material.
yeah,
They give you the stuff. Trump's cats and dogs. You just think, oh mate, you're just off your chump. You
yeah,
know. Um, whether it'll be successful though is another question.
yeah.
Uh,
That
you
is,
know,
yeah. I mean, I grew up on spitting image, and politics was always a big target of that when I grew up as a kid. How do you make politics? I mean, it's stuff like the pensioners, the fuel fund, and all the taxes and all that. It's obviously serious to a lot of people. How do you make it funny? Oh,
well, you have to come and see. You have to come and see. I'm not. I'm not going to go. And now I will
yeah,
now do everything I've written about the pet. No, you have to come and see. Trust me,
yeah,
I've done it for 39 years.
yeah,
I
yeah,
haven't fucked up too badly. It's
right.
all right. And Spitting Image, I used to work with them. They were great people,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
fantastic people. And it was always quite odd because you'd walk into they used to have a kind of like a studio in Aldgate East, and
right.
you'd go over there in Whitechapel, and you'd
Yeah,
go over there, and there'd be a room with just like politicians' heads hanging out of boxes as
yeah.
you walked in. It was just the most bizarre, wonderful place.
Well,
And the bloke who used to do it was a guy called Roger Law. It was just
yeah,
great. He was he'd always be there with a joint and a can, just going, right, what's going on? And I walked in once and I said to him, how you doing, Roger? And he just went, I've had a very creative day. I've made a ceramic tea set out of the seven deadly sins. And he just wandered off. And I loved that wild sort of like creativity of it all.
yeah,
He was a really interesting an exciting man. I mean, once Michael Heseltine, who is well-known deputy leader of the Tory party,
yeah, yeah,
uh, wrote to him saying, I love Spitting Image. How much can I buy my puppet off of you?
yeah.
And how much would it cost? And Roger Law wrote back and said, it'll cost 200 quid. And Michael Heseltine said, excellent. Who do I make the check payable to? And he said, the Labour Party. And I loved the fact that he would just take on any comer. Do you know what I mean? Anyone was up
Yeah,
for grab.
yeah. There was nobody wasn't the target. I mean, if they were to do a spitting image puppet of you, what do you think they'd kind of focus on?
On my nose.
Brilliant. Okay, I mean, you've done. Yeah, I mean, comedy's obviously been a big part of your life, like you said, for 40 years and beyond. I mean, but obviously politics has as well. And I've seen videos of you on picket lines doing protests, doing comedy shows at protests. Where did that interest come from? Because for a lot of people, that comes back at kind of college time and students. Was that for you? I mean, where did it?
I mean, I suppose there's a mixture of things. One was the fact that it was partly because I'd come from a very religious family,
Yeah,
and so we used to go to church, and I just used to take it seriously. So I thought you should help people who are weak, and I thought you should go and fight for people who
yeah,
are having a hard time. I just thought that's what it was.
yeah,
But mainly I went when I went to, I was like, I got into punk rock, I got
yeah.
into rock against racism and the anti-Nazi League when I was 15. You
Right.
know, my first demo was when I was 18. I went on a CND demo. For me, bands like Crass were
Yeah,
just the most amazing, a narco band that threw politics like buying a record of theirs was like buying an argument.
yeah.
It's just an amazing thing. And then I was at college up in Yorkshire, and it was the miners' strike, and people
Right.
who were my neighbours were getting imprisoned. People who were, I lived next door to were
Yeah,
getting fitted up, and were starving, and had to go begging, and that's how people survived
yeah,
because you had people had to do collections and soup kitchens because
yeah,
they had no strike pay, they had no benefits, they had no income.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it that was an incredibly politicizing moment.
Yeah,
Um, and I always I actually did a show about this. One of the things was when the miners marched back to work, they had, this is after a year being on strike and enduring just incredible hardship.
yeah,
They marched back to work, and I was on one of the march backs. And as they marched back through the village, the kids came out onto the railings at the school playground and sung, and they sung Solidarity Forever
wow.
at their dads, at their brothers, at their
Yeah,
uncles, and their community. And I think once you see something like that and you're part of something like that,
yeah,
a door opens and it will never close. You pick your side, you go and bat for it.
yeah. Why did you not follow politics as a career then? And what took you into comedy?
I'd steal all the money. I'd be dreadful. I'd be found in hot tubs, with sort of like any number and any gender of available sex workers with sweets. I'd be there with sex workers and bags of Haribo at the taxpayer's expense.
Yeah, brilliant. What took you into comedy then?
I always loved it. I always loved, for me, my dad was very, if you're looking at the motors of it, my dad was quite a violent man. And so the one
Right.
place you felt safe was when you're watching telly and there was a
Yeah,
comedy show on. And I loved Dave Allen. I
yeah, yeah,
loved
yeah,
Steptoe and Son.
yeah,
You know, Dave Allen for me was the greatest comic ever. He was just an absolute genius.
yeah.
Um, and seeing people like that, I said at the age of 16, I want to be a comedian,
Right.
and that was it. And I start when I was 16, I started to see Woody Allen movies,
Yeah,
and then it was kind of like, so I was completely kind of like bombarded I used to love like theatre, so I used to go see all the school plays and everything. And one of
right.
them was a Bertolt Brecht play called The Caucasian Chalk Circle. I was blown away by the fact you could go into a theatre thinking one thing and come out thinking another.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So all these things were going on. You had rock against racism, you had punk rock, you had, Woody Allen, you had Dave Allen,
yeah, yeah.
you had all of this converging. And at the age of 16, I was like, no, this is what I want to do. And
Right.
I've
Okay.
pretty much sort of stuck to it and gone, yeah, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, how difficult's that been? I mean, going back to what you said about Dave Allen and people like that. I grew up. My dad used to take me. He used to get free tickets from work to go and see radio shows being broadcast. So we saw like Les Dawson, Hinge and Bracket, all
Les
of them being
Dawson,
recorded.
utter genius.
Yeah,
Utter genius.
absolutely. The industry's changed a lot, though. I mean, over the years. I mean, I grew up like um, Warren Mitchell, people like that. Obviously, Jim Davidson was around when I was a child. I mean, the industry's changed a lot now. Comedy's changed a lot. People's attitudes to comedy. I mean, how do you find it now? Do you think it's changed for the better or for the worse? Or
Um, I can't really say whether it's changed for the better or the worse. I'm glad we haven't got the blatant racism that we used to have.
yeah, yeah,
Because I don't want that. I don't want,
yeah,
and I don't think it's healthy. And I don't think it's pleasant.
yeah,
And why would you? It's bullying.
Yeah,
That's what it is, you
yeah,
know. And I don't think for me, comedy is a bit more than bullying.
yeah, yeah,
You know, it's about being a bit creative. Um, Actually, it's about being mischievous. It's about usurping things. It's about subverting things.
yeah,
Um, I'm glad. I used to think Warren Mitchell was a really. I used to love Warren Mitchell. I thought he was an amazing actor.
yeah.
Um, and I thought it was a satire on racism, except for the fact that mates of mine who are Asian goes, yeah, yeah, you think it's a satire.
We don't.
We don't because we go into school and everyone's quoting it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right. So I kind of like, I'm glad things have moved on.
yeah. I mean, in terms of that, I mean, you've talked about race there, but political views as well as another hot potato. Do you find the same? Do you find people's
I've
attitudes have
always
changed? Or-
talked about politics. I've
Yeah,
never
yeah,
regarded it as a hot potato.
yeah,
I've always
yeah,
regarded it as as very cool chips.
yeah. Oh, okay, interesting. Have you had any issues with audiences then over like somebody?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah,
We've had rows, we've had fights,
yeah,
you know, we've you know, I was the other day I was in this was the day of the mayoral elections in
right.
London, and I was in Uxbridge, which is on the north edge, almost like a skin tag to
Yeah, I
London.
know Oxford. Yeah,
And I said, are you allowed to vote in the mayoral election here? And the bloke goes, yeah. And he said, no, I hope the Tories win. And I said, why is that? He said, well, because of Sadiq Khan and ULEZ, the ultra low emission zone. Why should I
yeah,
have to pay 12 quid to drive into London? And I said, well, why should my kids have to breathe your polluted air? Tell you what, mate, you want to put a bin bag on your exhaust, collect it, drive it home, stick it in your living room, suck it up, be my fucking guest.
yeah.
This was before the gig started. This was just by the bar.
Wow.
So I've always got into rows. We've always had politics. It's always been there.
Yeah.
And it's always exciting.
I was going to ask, do you find that kind of interaction with your audience healthy?
Yeah. It's
Obviously not
just
the
like a row, really. But it's also, I love the fact that I can go and express what I feel and
yeah,
play and muck around.
yeah,
Um, if the audiences don't like it, they don't have to come.
yeah. I'm sure they're turning up in the droves as always.
Well, we're doing all right so far. I mean,
Yeah,
39 years and I've still got a flat, so I'm all right.
yeah, definitely. Okay, just to kind of before we wrap up, we do a kind of more light-hearted question. I I was Googling your name earlier, and
Yeah.
there is a Mark Thomas out in California that does road engineering and all these huge construction projects. And he
It's
just
actually me. I double up. I don't know whether you know that.
oh, is that you? Oh, okay. Can
It
you do
is actually me. I
this?
actually spend half my time in California
Yeah, I would do that though, given how shit it is at the moment.
in
What I
road
wanted,
road projects. You say, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's
it's
me.
engineering. What I
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
know was,
Oh, I can't keep away from a bit of engineering.
I
Seriously, I'm fondling a sprocket set as we speak.
don't know how to answer that. You've what I wanted to ask you was, as a man who's travelled around the UK for many years on the roads and probably public transport doing gigs, if you could change one element of travel around the UK to make it more entertaining, what would you do, or what would you incorporate into your journeys? And if that kind of including fondling a sprocket set.
I think the thing that I would do is I would make train travel just a little bit easier.
Yeah. Well,
I I love traveling by train. That's my
yeah.
preferred mode of transport.
Right.
You get to see the countryside. You get to, when I always remember once coming back from Glasgow, or it was Glasgow or Edinburgh, I forget which one it was. We're coming back. It was a really snowy day,
Yeah.
and they couldn't guarantee we'd get through, and all the trains were getting stuck. And I got stuck at York Station, and at York Station, there's a rather beautiful footbridge,
Yeah, there
and on
is.
the
Yeah.
end of it, there is a calf.
Yeah.
And it looks like a cottage that's been stuck at the
Yeah.
end
Yeah.
footbridge. And I went in there and I got myself a cup of coffee. And a friend of mine in Glasgow had given me this book on John Maclean, the Scottish Revolutionary.
Right.
And I sat there in a very beautiful place that very few people get to spend a large amount of time in.
Yeah.
Because if you normally go in and get your thing and you leave, I sat there for 3 hours and you're never alone with a good book.
No,
So you
absolutely.
sit there reading, and I just finished this bit, shut the book, and there was an announcement of the train leaving. And for me, that was one of the most beautiful afternoons I've had.
It is lovely York State because we're in Harrogate, so we use York regularly. It's only down the road, so I know exactly
And
what you mean.
it's so what I would do, I would nationalize the railways.
Yeah,
I would nationalize the railways, and I would have nationalized coffee shops on the railway station.
brilliant.
I would introduce black and white film characters to staff those coffee shops and have big steaming urns with glass domes with Eccles cakes in it.
Oh,
And that would be perfect.
that would be absolutely. But you could because you could have a bookcase of books as well along the wall.
Oh, do you know, I think actually that's probably a good idea. If you wanted to improve the railways, I'd make the carriages bigger and the seats bigger. I'd get actually proper sort of like linked up, joined up railway system. Um, and I think a trolley with library books would be a most perfect thing.
Oh, it would, yeah. An Eccles library book and Eccles cakes and a cup of tea. You're laughing.
I'm I'm quite easily pleased.
Yeah, me too. And that sounds absolutely perfect. That sounds like a perfect day, actually, not just a perfect
It
train journey.
does,
It's like
doesn't
a
it?
perfect day. On that note, we'll just wrap up. I mean, first of all, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it,
Oh, mate, it's an absolute pleasure. It really is.
and good luck with the tour. And
Thank you.
I'm hoping we can get to one of the shows. Um, 39, 40 years in the business. What kind of ambitions have you got for the future, or is there anything you want to do, or have you got anything lined up?
Just to keep breathing. That's my big ambition.
Yeah,
The breathing game.
yeah,
Keep breathing. There's loads of things that are coming up. When we finish this tour, I'm doing a film about the beverage report, which
right.
is really exciting. I'm directing a performance artist. I'm working with a new play, and I've got a book that's about to be commissioned. So there's loads of stuff to be done. I'm not going to run out of ideas. I'm not going to run out of projects. And I just want to keep doing them for as long as I can. Um, uh, as long as you don't see me with a packet of Walker's crisps stand there gurneying at the screen, then I'll be happy.
Everything's good until that point. Perfect. Well, I wish you all the luck for the future, and like I said, I hope we catch up with an Eccles cake and a book. And
Mate, if you come up to me with an Eccles cake and a book, you'll find the most comradely welcome.